Yo, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Laurel Cole Mozak, and you're listening to the Socially Awkward Podcast. Socially awkward. Socially awkward. Let's go. Family, welcome back to Season 2, Episode 2. I'm really excited that you're here. First and foremost, thank you. Thank you again for tuning in. First of all, on Season 1, thank you for tuning in on our last episode. Thank you for subscribing, commenting, sharing. It was just beautiful. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure, you review and let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. Let me know what I could do better. Just let me know. Just be honest, be real. This is where we are. We on this Socially Awkward Podcast. We're real and honest. And I want to make sure that this podcast isn't something that's just one of those things where I'm just preaching to you or whatever. I always wanted to invite you into my office, invite you into my home, and we're just having a one-on-one connection, just having a talk, I know it's a solo dolo podcast, but I just want to be able to invite you into what I'm thinking and just be unfiltered with that and invite you to love God in the process. So thank you for tuning in. I'm so grateful. So let's get into this podcast. Let's get into what we're talking about today. Last week, we talked about help, I'm triggered. This week, we're going to be talking about triggered by fear. We're going to be talking about triggered by fear. And there's a perfect story that I want to tell that goes perfectly to this topic about being triggered by fear. And I'm going to tell you what happened to me. I'm going to wait to tell you, but I'm going to tell you what happened to me. So years ago, I was in college and playing basketball, doing my thing, growing, getting better. I'll go up for a rebound and I fractured my ankle. I came down, I heard this big old pop. Pow! Just heard this pop sound. I went down, I just couldn't get up. I said, okay, something's wrong. Maybe you twisted it. And I said, no, it don't sound like a twist. I heard a pop. And so some of my boys took me to the doctor and went to the doctor and did some x-rays, MRIs, all this stuff, and said, yeah, your ankle is fractured. So, we have to clean you up a little bit, and you're going to be in a walking boot and you're going to have to do physical therapy and do the whole nine. And you're going to have to stop playing basketball for about 6 months. I say, ain't no way. At the time, again, I'm in peak condition, second year, I think it's sophomore, junior year in college. I'm in peak condition. I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to not play basketball. So I'm in a walking boot, still hooping. I'm in a walking boot trying to coach. The intramurals go on, is on. It's the season of intramurals, and I have a team. I'm like, man, I got to coach my team. I got to get out there somehow. And so the whole process was a lot. I didn't realize when I started doing physical therapy, my doctor, the therapist asked, he said, is there something else going on with your leg? I feel there's a lot of tension somewhere. Is there something that's going on? I said, well, I think there's something going on with my knee. My knee is feeling awful. It would be so bad where I couldn't sit down for long periods of time. I would feel this sharp pain, like a needle stabbing my knee. I would go for a layup and I would just collapse. I'm like, man, what is really going on? What is really happening to me? Like, is my body breaking down at 22? Yeah, no, it wasn't 22. Is my body breaking down at, how old was I? I graduated when I was 21. So 19, I was 19 years old. Is my body breaking down at 19? And I was just really confused by what was happening. And so we did physical therapy, did a lot of leg workouts, and did a lot of different things, movements to kind of help my patella tendonitis. That's what they call it, patella tendonitis. And so I got it together. After a while, I didn't feel the pain in my knee at all. I still feel it here and there, but it's nothing as it used to be. It was nowhere near close of what it used to be. And so I had patella tendonitis and a fractured ankle on the same leg. But after a while, I was kind of nervous. So the fear set in. When I was playing basketball, I would be fearful of going up for a layup or going up trying to get a rebound. So I stopped driving to the paint out of fear of me fracturing my ankle again. So I had ankle wraps, knee wraps, the whole nine. I was doing everything, making sure that doesn't happen. And so every time I play basketball, whether it was pickup, whether it was going to the gym, I always had my ankle wrap, my ankle brace, always had my knee brace, was ready at all times, making sure I didn't want to break it. You know what I mean? So, and that was always my fear. My fear was always like to have a major injury where I'm just out for the count. My fear is also where I'm not active enough where, I can't do the essential things of life. It's always a fear of mine. And so we fast forward to 2022. Uh, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, about 5 weeks ago, my wife is at this time 34 and a half, maybe 35 weeks pregnant. And I went to a music festival, a jazz festival with some of my friends, and went to a jazz festival. And so, I'm sorry, it's a story time, but I'm going to get to a point. Went to a jazz festival, and we were talking afterwards, and we was trying to get some funnel cakes, but the guy said that he ran out of fuel, and he ran out of propane, and so he had to go get the propane. And so we just like, man, we sitting here waiting. We can't wait an hour, 2 hours for you to get some propane. You should be prepared. And that's a lesson within itself. Don't go out here trying to sell folks stuff and you ain't prepared, because you just never know. If you run out of something, you always got to have backup. You always have to have a backup. Either case. So we wait and said, we just said, forget it. Forget the funnel cake. I said, what else do you have? Well, we have peach cobbler. Let's get some peach cobbler. Let's get peach cobbler. We got to go back home to our wives or whatever. And so before we get back home, we're talking, say, hey, man, why wouldn't we just play basketball? Let's all hoop. I said, yeah, we all haven't hooped together. Let's do that. Let's go hoop. So we scheduled it for Tuesday. That next week. It was a Saturday. We scheduled it for Tuesday. And so we get out there. One of my boys is like, hey, I'm going to ask, come up with some of our other guys to come play ball with us so we can actually have a good run. I said, cool. I'm down for that. Now, I've been practicing. I've been playing. I work out daily. And before my workouts, I always shoot hoops. And so it's not something that is odd. Like, oh, I just randomly got on the court and started playing. No, I'm playing regularly. And so we're playing ball. I'm putting in buckets. We having a good time. Just having a good time. It was like 2-on-2, 3-on-3 type things. And so we got to a point where we had our third game, and one of my friends, Michael, comes up and he gets his shot up, and I was like, all right, bro, let me go settle him down. And I'm just playing, just doing my thing, just playing regularly. And all of a sudden, I make my move to go left. I go left, and somehow I didn't hear a pop, but I felt that someone kicked me. And I looked back and I just I just stumbled to the wall. I just kept moving and I just went to the wall, and I'm grabbing my leg, but the back of my leg. And I said, did somebody kick me? Somebody kicked me from behind. Didn't you? Somebody kick me. It's like, nah, bro, ain't nobody kick you, man. It's just you. I said, wait a minute. No, nobody was behind me. Nobody was behind you, bro. It was just you. It was just you. And I said, oh, man. Oh, no. And so fear crept in, man. The very thing that I was afraid of, I knew was happening at that moment. Now, what happened was I grabbed my ankle, and I felt this disconnect between my ankle and my heel and my calf. It was a weird disconnect. It felt like my foot was elevated upward, and I felt like the sole of my foot was separated from everything else. And I thought it was the shoe. I said, maybe it's the shoe. Maybe these KDs ain't working right. I don't know what's going on. Now, this is my right foot. Now, my left foot is good, tape, ready to go. You know what I'm saying? But it's my right foot at this particular time going left. And they said, are you good? What's happening? Is it your ankle? I said, I think it's just my ankle. I'm in denial because I know exactly what it is. I said, no, maybe it's not my ankle. I feel something wrong with my calf too. My calf is strained. So maybe it's a hot calf strain. I think it's a hot calf strain. So I'm just diagnosing myself at this point, trying to deny what it really is, because I knew what it was, but I was trying to deny what it really was. Because a lot of times what fear does, it keeps you in denial of the reality of what's really going on. You don't want to believe what it is, and fear triggers an emotion that leads you to escape the reality of what's really going on. And so that's what happened. Fear triggered an emotion for me to deny what was really happening in my life at that particular moment in time. And so I go home. Actually, I brought my boys with me to the gym, and they're in their own play place or whatever. I get a call. He's not doing too well. I'm like, okay, it's time for me to go anyways. Yeah, let me go get him out. And so I pick up Kaysen and Carlo. I'm limping. I didn't want to tell my wife, because as soon as I left the house, my wife told me, don't get injured. Now, she says that quite often when I go play basketball. But she told me, she said, "LaRocco, don't get injured." Now I was just like dreading the fact that I have to call her and tell her, "Hey, I'm not doing too good." Hey, I'm not. I don't know if men, have you ever been to, have you ever done something you have just dreading? You know you have to say it. You can't just deny it. You know you got to. She's gonna see your limp now. She's gonna see you in pain. You just deny. Like, oh God, I really gotta say. I really gotta tell her what happened. The very thing she fears happened to me. So I texted her. I called her. I said, I just got the boys. I'm headed home, but I'm injured. And she's like, oh, see, she already knew. So, all right, see, you do playing too hard, like whatever. I was like, so in her mind, she's probably thinking it's just some regular injury. In my mind, I'm like, I don't think this is regular, but I'm gonna act like it's regular because I don't want to believe the reality of what it is. So I get home. So for a week straight, I'm trying to strap it up, ice it, and I'm limping. I'm trying to do all the things. I mean, I'm trying to do it everything. I'm trying to do all because at this particular time, again, my wife is 35 weeks pregnant, and she needs all of me. At this point, she's not doing anything. I'm making sure that she's doing nothing. I don't want her picking up the boys. I don't want her doing anything. So I was doing everything, and the very thing that I feared as well is me not being able to be available physically for her. Now I have two boys. They're twins. They're 2 years old, going on 3, and they're very, very active. And they're not in preschool at this particular time, but we've been discussing it, getting them enrolled before the new baby comes, so that they'll have a schedule. And yeah. So we've just been thinking about that. And so the thing is, now that I have this injury, how am I going to drive? Because I actually drove home with this injury. I might as well tell you what happened. So I tore my Achilles. I ruptured my I ruptured my Achilles, and I didn't know that. I knew that's what it was, but I didn't want to believe it. So after a week has gone by, I'm still limping around. It's a little painful. Like, this just doesn't feel right, because I'm not using my leg at this point. I'm not using my ankle to walk because I can't bend it. I just know there's a gap in between my heel and my calf. There's a gap. There's like nothing there. It's like really soft tissue, like nothing. So my wife and some of my boys were like, "Hey, bro, I think you want to get that checked out. I don't know, you probably just want to go to a orthopedic just to see what's happening, bro." I'm like, okay. So my wife, she had called my guys, and they all surprised me one night, and I went to go check it out, and he checked it out, diagnosed it. He said, "Yeah, man, you've ruptured your Achilles, and we need to get you into surgery now." And I'm like, "What do you mean get into surgery?" Now, I don't like surgery. I've never had surgery before. It's not something that I didn't want to do surgery. Only thing surgery related was getting my wisdom teeth out. I didn't even have surgery for my, fractured ankle. But I'm just like, surgery, bro? Like, come on, man. You ruptured your Achilles, and the recovery process, the span of time that you're not going to be able to do what you want to do is going to be 6 to 12 weeks. I'm like, man, I got a baby on the way in 5, bro. I got a baby on the way in like 4.5 weeks or sooner, man. Like, I need to be able to move, bro. I can't just sit around and just not do anything. He said, well, if you have any friends, if you have any family, this is the time to cash in. Like, this is the time. And for me, I don't like asking for help. So that was one of those things that God had to work with me on, is actually picking up the phone and texting saying, "Hey, I need help. I need help with my trash can, getting it out in the morning. Hey, I need help getting the baby car seat in and moving our car seats in the back of the car." And so it's a lot of things that I just wasn't able to do, and I had to ask for help, and that challenged my pride. And I think the situation was beneficial in a way that it allowed me to see the community that I do have, because I don't have a lot of family nearby. I don't have family at all nearby, at all. We moved to Texas, didn't know a thing, didn't know anybody. And so relying on community, relying on people that we trust, who we call friends. And one of my friends had told me, he said, you can't just call everybody your friend. You just can't call everybody your friend, because when you call someone your friend, what you're doing is signing up. You're signing up to have your time, some of your time, taken away from you so that you can help take care of someone else. There's going to be times where you're going to have to sacrifice what you want to do to help someone else, to help your friend. And not a lot of people are willing to go outside of themselves to help someone else because they're in need. To go away from their family for a minute to help you take out the trash, or you know, saying a lot of people aren't willing to sacrifice what they value and cherish most, which is their time, to help you with whatever else that you need, whether it's moving, whether it's packing up boxes, whether it's an injury, or if you're sick. Not everybody you can call your friends, because not everybody are willing to sacrifice their time. So I'm grateful that I found some people who I can really call my friends. Yeah, but in this process, I've learned a lot. I've learned that there are times where God will sit you down in ways that you don't understand in order for you to grow, in order for you to see something He's trying to show you. Because I'm a very active individual, I sometimes don't have the time, or sometimes I don't use the time enough to sit down and actually hear what God is trying to say. A lot of times I'm moving so much that I may miss something, and I may think that it's God when it's not, because I'm moving so fast. And that's just me. I don't. I always have to have my hands in something. I'm always going. I'm always doing this, that, and the third. Because I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about what can we do to make sure that we're good. So this injury, having to be out, having to lay down, having not to get up, has, at this particular time, messed me up. I ain't gonna lie to you. The first week was the hardest week. The first week of me just laying down, sitting down, elevating my leg, not moving, having a hard time getting up, using these crutches, and it was not being able to shower the right way, and having to readjust, and because it's like a shock for me. It's a lifestyle shock from me moving around so much to now not being able to move at all. It was a shock for me, and it led me into a place where I was low key depressed. I was like, man, this ain't for me. Like, I'm watching my wife doing all this stuff. She's doing the things that I would do. She wasn't doing anything up until this point, just focusing on her baby, just focusing on her body. And now she has to focus on me. Now she has to focus on the boys and has to do all this stuff, and her body. That is a lot for her to focus on, especially when you're trying to give birth, and it's a lot of stress on her body. And the first week was very tough for me to see. And so I was low key like in a bad place, like low key depressed. I'm just like, man, this isn't right, man. Like, I don't like the way I feel in this moment. I don't like how I feel not being able to do the functions that I'm used to doing. And God had placed me in an unfamiliar place. It was unfamiliar to me to be in a position where I had to be taken care of. It was unfamiliar for me to be in a position where I had to be the one that wasn't able to do anything, that I'm disabled, that I can't really run after my boys and have fun with them, and I can't really, pick them up. I can't do the things that I know I needed to do, especially now, to be able to support my wife and my kids in this time that she's almost getting ready to pop out another baby. And so I was low-key depressed. That fear of me not being able to move the way I want to move happened. What I feared the most of having to have surgery, which was successful, by the way, having to go through this recovery process at the absolute worst time, that was a lot for me. It was a lot to handle. And so I had that one week where I was just like, man, this ain't for me. And I had to find some other ways and some other methods to be supportive. So I found this thing called an Awe-kward, where it's like a knee crutch. So I put my knee on this crutch, and I'm able to use it regularly. And so use my knee, use my leg. I'm able to pick up things. It's not like a scooter. It's not like crutches. I'm actually able to go to the gym and work out. I'm actually able to pick up my boys. It was a learning curve. I had to learn how to walk with it in the first 2 days. It's kind of weird. If you've watched my Instagram, saw my stories or whatever, you'll see that I'm able to function regularly. But if still, I'm moving at a slower pace than what I used to move. And maybe that's what God wanted. Maybe He wanted me to slow down. A lot of times when things like this happen at the worst time, there's always a lesson behind the madness. Sometimes we look at the madness and we just stay focused on the madness. We stay focused on what's happening wrong to us, or so much trauma is going on in my life. I don't know how to function. We focus on the madness. We focus on the destruction. We focus on the things that's disrupting our life or uprooting our life. But we don't look at the lesson. We don't take the time to figure out, man, what's the good behind the bad? And a lot of times we think that everything in our life that may be happening is just, this is bad. And maybe it's not bad. Maybe it's only bad if you don't learn anything from it. Maybe it's only bad. Maybe it's only not good if you don't learn any good from it. Because life happens. Trust me, I know. My wife is still pregnant, 40 weeks, and I'm still in a cast. I got about 3 more weeks of the cast, and then I'm in a walking boot, and then then I have physical therapy, and I still won't be able to drive and do all the things yet. At that particular time, I'll be recovering, and so I understand the feeling of, man, is this worth it? Man, like, God, why'd you do this to me? Or trying to blame God or find some fault, or maybe blame yourself. Man, I shouldn't even be playing basketball. What was my problem? Like, why was I even out there? If I would have just not did this, or if I have all these excuses and blaming yourself for something that was probably going to happen anyways. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was. It's just, but to call it bad and call it just madness and not see the good behind it, we'll never grow, we'll never develop, we'll never learn what God is trying to teach us. And I feel like for me, God was teaching me a couple of things. One, to slow down. He was teaching me to slow down because I move so fast, and to learn that pace is everything. That when you're running this race called life, it's not about how fast you're going, it's about how you pace yourself. Because when you pace yourself, you're able to look at what's going on around you. You're not distracted. You're able to sense when things are happening. You're able to sense and feel when you should move or when you should not move, or when you should take a break or when you should not take a break. When you're going so fast, a lot of times you go so fast, you don't know when you need to take a break until you just collapse. Sometimes you're going so fast, you don't know when you need to sit down and take a sip of water, or maybe you just need a hug, or maybe you just need to cry. Because you're moving so fast, you won't know those things until you actually break down. And that's what happens sometimes, where you go so far, you do so much. I think that's what happened with Kobe. Kobe tore his Achilles, and I feel like up until that moment, he was pushing 40, 41 minutes a night playing basketball in the game, not coming out the game, just playing 40 minutes a game, which is taxing, doing all the work that he was doing. His body just collapsed. Even before his Achilles, he had knee issues that same game. He had a knee and an ankle mess up in the same game on the same leg. It was bound to happen because he was overworked. Your body will tell you, sit down. Your body will tell you, okay, we can't do this. And it's not a bad thing. It's just, hey, maybe some things need to happen that way in order for us to actually think and say, you know what, I probably needed that to happen. I probably need to see what I'm capable of slowing down. How far can God take me if I just pace myself? Because a lot of times when we're running so fast, we're trying to figure out how we can get there. But when we pace ourselves and come back a little bit, now we're not just relying on our strength, but we're relying on God to kind of push us in a place. We're sensing the patience that we need to actually move to the place that God has for us. When we're moving so fast, we're not asking God for anything. What are we asking God for? We trying to get there. God, you follow me, God. Come on, catch up. And God's like, no, man. Let me sit you down for a minute. Let me teach you what patience looks like. So I feel like God taught me. He's teaching me still patience and learning how to slow down. You don't have to move so fast. You don't have to do that right now. There's certain things that isn't a right now thing. There's a scripture that says not all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. In life, there's a lot of things that are lawful that, yeah, you probably should do it, or you probably shouldn't. You probably can do it. Doesn't mean you probably should do. Yeah, it's lawful for you to do it, but should you do it right now? Like, should you exert all of your energy into doing that right now? You don't believe in burnout? That happens when you do all the things that are lawful. When God says They may be lawful, but they're not expedient. They're not. There's no rush to it. So we got to stop rushing in life. We have to stop rushing to do things as if we don't rush, we'll never get it done. If we don't rush, God will never honor it. If we don't rush, we'll never grow. That's not true. It's furthest from the truth. No, sometimes you need to sit down and actually wait for God to push you, wait for God to pace you. And that's the hardest discipline, what I think, to learn is to actually wait and actually pace yourself. That takes discipline. That takes strength and perseverance to change your mindset to think that, okay, God, I'm going to move at your pace, not at my own. Because if I move at your pace, I feel like a lot more things would get done. Because me moving at my own pace, I feel like I'm missing some stuff. It's like writing a paper. If I can write this paper so fast, if I can get this thing done in an hour, I'll be good. I'll be good if I just write it in an hour. Give me 2 hours tops, I'll write the paper. Well, you're going to miss something because you're not taking the time to edit. You're not taking the time to look and see what you missed, what's your grammar like. You're so focused on getting it done that you negate the process. We have to stop being so focused on getting it done that we just forget about the middle. We're worried about the start and the end, but we don't worry about, we don't focus on the middle. What does the process look like? Are we missing something in the middle? Because we really can't get to the end, a finished project if we don't focus on what's going on in the middle circle. I feel like God was teaching me that. And God was teaching me how to handle my fears. My fear was not to get injured, not to have a major injury, not to have surgery, not to be in a place where I'm vulnerable. Like being injured in this capacity leaves me vulnerable. It leaves I feel like it leaves my family vulnerable because I'm not able to rise up when I can. You know what I mean? And so we have to learn that sometimes the fear can be a trigger to depression, anxiety. Fear is just the absence of uncertainty. Fear is the absence of uncertainty. It's a trigger that stirs an emotion that causes us to fall back and to retreat and to isolate when something uncertain happens, when something unexpected happens. And I was reading an article not too long ago. It was talking about that God has given us, these fears. God has given us the ability to experience fears. And I'm like, no, that's not. That's contrary to the word of God. God didn't give us fears because the Bible says, in Timothy, he says, for God didn't give us the spirit of fear, but he gave us power, love, and a sound mind. So we can't just think that, okay, God just gave us these fears, because if we feel and believe that God gave us these fears, then we'll live in the fear. And we won't live in power. We won't live in a sound mind because our mind now is wanting to retreat every time we feel the fear. We're wanting to isolate every time we feel the fear. We're wanting to, isolate ourselves from community and from our friends and from our family, from our husbands and our wives and from our children because we feel fear. I feel like when I was growing up, my mom, she lived in a lot of fear. Growing up, she had a fear of bridges. And every time she go over the bridge, she would either stop in the middle of the bridge or go like 2 miles per hour. Well, how do you overcome that fear? Well, something triggered her to cause her to fear going over a bridge. Something traumatic happened in her life where it just triggered a fear in her mind where she can't go past. She can't go through. And a lot of us stop in the middle of the fear. We stop in the middle of the process. We stop in the middle of our journey because of fear. We stop because we haven't handled the emotional trauma behind the fear, behind that trigger emotion. And we have to figure out what is the root behind the fear. For me, I didn't want this issue. I didn't want to be disabled. I didn't want to feel this. I didn't want to go to surgery. I tried everything I could to not get injured this way. I didn't drive to the hoop like I wanted to. I didn't try to get a lot of rebounds and be so active, and I just focused on shooting jumpers and three-point shots and passing the basketball, making sure I stay out of the way. And a lot of us are trying to stay out of the way. We're just trying to get out of the way. We're just trying to stay out of the way. And we're not operating in our fullness potential. We're not operating in the fullness of what God has given us and our fullness of our abilities, because we just want to get out of the way. We want to stop in the middle of the process because it's too hard, because the fear is triggering us to stop. The fear of uncertainty is triggering us to hold back, to isolate, to retreat. But God didn't give you that fear. God didn't give you the fear. He didn't give you that. He gave you power, love, and a sound mind. God tells you not to be anxious. God tells you to fear not. Be not dismayed. God is with you. God, it will always be with you. So why fear? Why be triggered by fear? Our main goal in life is to go to God in everything that we do and everything that we go through in life. If I didn't go to, after that first week, if I didn't go to God and say, God, help me with my fear of uncertainty. Help me with this burden of not being able to help, not being able to, this fear of asking people for help. If I didn't go to God, I would still be depressed. I wouldn't have found a way to be active. I go to the gym now and folks are like, man, that's a cool whatever that is that you're walking, you're working out. Yeah, man. Bro, that's determination. People keep telling me every time I go to the gym, hey, bro, you're inspiring me. I'm like, ow, what do you mean? Bro, the fact that I've never seen anything like that. And the fact that you putting work in and you got a ruptured Achilles and you're still working out, that's unreal to me. I'm like, how is that unreal? In my mind, I'm like, what do you mean? It's all about mindset. It's all about triggering your mind to understand that God has placed something inside of you to overcome the fear of uncertainty. And if we just fall into his arms and get close to him and ask him, just lean on him and ask him to teach us on how to overcome the madness that happens in our life, to teach us how to overcome the uncertainty that happens, to teach us to overcome all the pains and the trauma and the drama that comes with life. If we can just lean on him, we'll be able to walk through it instead of stopping in the middle. We have to learn to walk. The Bible says, endure hardships as good soldiers of Jesus Christ. What does endure mean? It means to go through. It doesn't mean to stop. It doesn't mean to go backwards. It means to endure means to literally go through. And in order for us to see the other end of a thing, we have to go through to get to the thing. The fear trigger, the trigger of fear. So I just wanted to encourage you today. That's kind of my story. That's been my story right now, is this overcoming this fear of uncertainty. What happens next? Some of you ask that question every day when you wake up. What happens next? What do I do next? What do I do now? Be anxious for nothing. Let your requests be made known to God by prayer and supplication. Give it to God. Ask and you shall receive. Whatever request that you make, whatever you need from God, he'll give it to you. If you need to change if you need a renewed mind, he'll give it to you. You just have to ask for it. Some of you don't have it because you don't ask for it. Why am I still struggling? Have you asked God to help you? It doesn't mean it's going to be a quick fix now. You don't ask thinking that God's going to do it immediately. You ask thinking that God is going to do it, period. God needs to do it right now on my time. Hold on. Sometimes you guys, again, he needs to develop you and process you so that when you are able to handle that freedom, that release, like, you'll be better for it. And you won't make the same mistakes you did before. You won't be living in fear, but you'll be living in victory. So I want you all to live in victory, man. I don't want y'all to live in fear, because all of us, we've all been triggered by fear. Each and every day, some of us are walking in fear as we speak. But God doesn't want you to walk in fear. I feel like walking in fear is just like walking dead. Like, when you walk in fear, you're walking dead. You're not able to experience the fullness of life when you're in fear. So I just want to encourage you today. Don't walk in fear. Walk in victory. Walk in freedom. Lean on God. Hold close to him. Hold close to him. Be close now. And you'll be able to overcome that fear and to be able to walk free. Walk free. So that was story time. That was episode 2 of the Socially Awkward podcast of season 2. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from this. And if you have, like, leave a review. If you have, let me know. Tell me about it. Tell your friends about it. Tell someone about it. If this is something that you have, if this has changed you in some way or some capacity. If someone else needs this message that, are going through madness or going through an unexpected situation and they don't know how to get out of it, send them this podcast. Send them this episode. And so that we can overcome our fears together and we can walk in victory and freedom. So, yeah, love y'all. See y'all next week. Socially awkward. Socially awkward. Let's go.